Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of Pod Sothoth, a Lovecraft book club. I am briefly serving as your host, Todd Beardsley, and what follows is a recording of the Armitage Symposium lecture, Vanitas Horrendum Lex, From Beyond the Bar, featuring two of my favorite attorneys, Harley Geiger and, of course, Claire Reynolds. While I helped tee up some jokes for these two learned professionals and handled some organizational bits, Harley and Claire are the two real stars of this very special bonus episode. We join our lecture as Harley ably introduces the topic and launches into a fantastic adventure of issue spotting and advocacy in the nightmarish legal landscape of Lovecraft's universe.
Introduce ourselves quickly. There's a couple things I want to say just off the bat. One is, this is not legal advice.
This whole thing is privilege, yeah?
I'm going to need $1 from each and every one.
That's right, that's right. Rely on it to your peril. I by day am a lawyer at a firm, except for today I am a lawyer for the elder gods. And perhaps something you will hear is we may argue both sides of an issue, right? This is something that we are taught to do as lawyers, right? It's your clients can be on either side, so we're not here to sort of represent one creature in the stories, but to sort of look at it from different angles.
I'm Claire Reynolds. I am by day work for the State Bar of Texas. As my husband likes to point out, I'm an attorney that hunts other attorneys, which sounds way better. It sounds much more interesting than it really is. But
I'm nervous sitting next to her. Right?
Yeah, you should be. Yeah, if you're an attorney and I don't know who you are, that's wonderful. It's for you. No, I just noticed that when reading these stories, as an attorney, it's impossible to know the law, but really what you need to do is to be able to issue spot. And that's like when you're going through and you're reading a scenario, you're picking out that's a weird thing. That's a thing that I need to look into. So that's kind of what I do whenever I read the stories, just naturally do it.
Does it happen with you where you're reading a story or you're watching something like a fantasy show and you're like, they really need a good lawyer in there.
Oh yeah.
To help mediate Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It can all work out. There's enough for everybody.
Yeah. So the first to me and most obvious story with a big glaring legal issue is the statement of Randolph Carter. It's basically a Law and Order scene in written form.
So the statement of Randolph Carter, Randolph Carter starts off confessing everything, right? He's immediately speaking to the police. And
every lawyer suggests you do, right? You just want to put it all out there.
Yeah, if you've done nothing wrong, then you have nothing to fear, right?
and gets off on a very interesting foot where I can imagine the police questioning him. So you're a student of the occult, okay? And doing a little grave robbing, were we? All right. And you had a telephone into the crypt, understood. So there were in fact no Miranda rights at the time that this was written. This was written in the 1920s. We did not get our Miranda rights read to us the way that we are all familiar with until 1966. So today, Mr. Carter would be advised that he has the right to an attorney, and anything that he can say will be used against him, and he should shut up and get an attorney immediately.
So a little audience participation. Harley said a couple of them. Who can name the parts of the Miranda rights? You've probably heard it on TV. Anyway, yes.
You have right to an attorney if you can't afford it, we can't want to appoint it for you.
Yes.
Silent, and you say can will be used against you. Don't miss anything.
Very good. No, that's the basics. Are you? Okay.
Very clever coming in.
I've never, exactly. No, I've never heard of you. You're good to go.
But hours for good.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's unclear about here is he being detained?
Yes,
right?
In my opinion.
You would think. But or is this a voluntary statement? I mean, is one of the questions you would want to ask if you were in the position of Mr. Carter is, am I being detained? Am I under arrest? And if the answer is no, then out of there. But,
Yeah.
but he does not do that. He says, execute me if you must.
Yes, I know. Very dramatic. Yeah, no, but at the beginning he does say, I repeat to you, gentlemen, that your inquisition is fruitless. Detain me here forever if you will. Confine or execute me.
Excellent issue spotting.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Definitely being detained. If you're ever at a point where you're being given your Miranda rights, the last question that they should ask would be, knowing and understanding your rights, as I have explained them to you, are you willing to answer my questions without an attorney present? Can anyone tell me what the answer to that question should be?
No. Absolutely opposite.
So it's the big house for Mr. Carter.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm like you had mentioned previously.
And Randall's poor friend, what was his name?
Harley, in
Warren.
fact.
Yes.
Total coincidence. All right.
All right, so we move on to the scintillating world of patent law.
For this one, I don't mean to take over, but I will.
Please.
Yeah, okay. So I was researching this one, and I thought, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to look at what the patent law was at the time that this was written. That should be interesting and not too difficult. Reader, I was wrong. It is neither interesting nor easy. Because I'm not a patent attorney. I don't know anything about patent law today, let alone back in the 1920s.
I didn't look at patent law at the time. But I do know, so patents are in the Constitution. So the concept of a patent was certainly in play at the time that the stories were written. And obviously what a patent does is it gives you the exclusive right to a business method or an invention. And Mr. Hotep here is clearly making inventions of strange instruments of glass and metal, that make men mad through demonic sparks. The practice of patent trolling is a much more modern sort of convention. So patent trolling, or patent assertion is the more professional way of saying it, is where, I own a patent, and in some cases, it's a very broad patent. There are sometimes disputes over whether a patent should have been issued, or whether it's so broad that it can be applied to a lot of technologies. But I will take this patent and, through my attorney, say, I think the technology that you're using infringes on my patent, and you must now pay me a license in order to continue, making a web browser. There's some very interesting precedents out there for, patents that sound so broad as to be ridiculous, but it is a real thing. And, large companies will have to create patent portfolios in order to protect themselves from being sued by patent assertion entities. There are entire law firms that specialize in this. It's very lucrative, which brings us to Mr. Hotep here. So, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Hotep's hypnotizing machine, either one, is in need of patent protection, right? Or number two, is likely in violation of contemporary patents. And if Mr. Hotep needs patent protection for this machine that drives people insane, I mean, he clearly has things to do. He is taking over the earth and everyone's minds. So you don't want to get bogged down in court, Mr. Hotep. No, oh my goodness, no. And so what you need clearly is a patent attorney to help you out and get you the patent that you deserve to protect your ingenuity so that you can continue on with whatever it is that you're doing.
This is definitely one way to avoid becoming one of the insane people. You will be spared.
Absolutely.
This way.
On the other hand, if somebody already owns the patent, then it goes like this. Mr. Hotep, my client, actually owns the patents on, checks notes, machines of glass and metal that drive men mad. Now, you can either cease and desist your activities, or you can pay my client a license and continue on with whatever it is you're doing. and that sort of thing did not apparently exist. I don't know, you know more about 1920s patent law since you probably... I didn't even Google it, so you have to know.
No, it was definitely in existence. One of the things that it's my understanding, I'm not a Lovecraft academic. I'm not really even an academic. Shocking that I'm here. Yeah, but a lot of people believe that the way he had described Nyarlathotep, Mr. Hotep.
We're avoiding saying the name because we don't.
Yeah,
quite know
you're
how
right.
to
I
pronounce it.
don't want to bring him here either. Was that he was kind of describing Tesla at the time, and that makes a lot of sense to me. He was describing how he was, he's a showman. He shows up with all these fancy things and moving shadows, and
That's fascinating.
yeah. So that kind of brought me down the path of like, what kind of patents did Tesla have? He had quite a few. And it kind of brought me along to, has anybody heard of Marconi Wireless versus United States? Yes. Yeah. Does anyone want to tell me what that has to say?
I am not an attorney. I didn't go to college, so I'm not great at explaining these things. But more or less, they did not want him working on that because that was not part of what he agreed upon to make for them. So they basically shut it down, if I'm understanding and remembering this correctly.
That's actually a very nuanced answer that I was not expecting. So I was hoping that somebody would say, oh yeah, that's the case where they said that Tesla, not Marconi, is the inventor of the radio. Because it's often mistakenly quoted as being that. It's much more complicated than that. They never said Marconi was not the inventor of the wireless radio, but rather he had built on the people coming before him, one of whom was Tesla.
So, patent trolling cosmic deities. 100%.
Yeah, that's absolutely what they would be doing today. Forum shopping for East Texas.
That's right. All right. So, can you spot the issues in The Call of Cthulhu?
So many.
So, the story gives, the crowd knows. How do you pronounce the name of that city? Right. Relay. So, Relay's coordinates, they give a latitude and longitude. We checked out those coordinates, in fact, and they are in the South Pacific. So this is midway between New Zealand and Argentina. I feel like if nobody has actually visited that location, that would be an excellent field trip. It seems important. You have visited the location.
Well, I used to live in Dunedin. I think the ship that goes missing in the story that comes out of Dunedin really did. A friend of mine back in the pre-internet days was like, I went down to the shipping register and I found it. Oh my God, it's all true.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's terrifying.
When I looked it up on Google Maps, I was really hoping that somehow someone had managed to get, exactly. Or that like if I clicked on, the image of whatever that is, Google Earth, that there would be some kind of like a monster flailing or something. I didn't get anything like that.
What's some of the issues?
Yeah.
So there are two big ones to my minds, and they both involve the police. So if you remember from the story, there's the detective telling his tale of going into the Louisiana swamp, and there was a cultist there. And in that story, I can understand if they had probable cause, right? Some people had gone missing. This is a swamp, so it may or may not be private property. So, maybe not an issue with the police going there, but they arrested everybody.
Arrested.
That's right.
You were lucky if you were arrested
There were
out of that one.
Shots fired. Something like 5 people died. They did find bodies in the story. They were hanging, but they arrested.
They all reached for the officer's service weapon.
Yes.
But there were, according to the story, there were some 47 of these folks. Now, surely all 47 were not involved, and maybe they found those bodies when the police showed up. They were dancing around them as one does. It doesn't mean that they killed them. And remarkably, when they brought them back to the police station, they all had the same story. Right? The cultists didn't kill them. They were killed by these black winged creatures. Now 40 people are all telling the same story. That's not bad. I mean, that's incredible discipline, on the part of your cult, or it's potentially true. But in the end, we didn't really get into it in the story. But only 2 were fit to hang, which means that 40 people ended up were committed into an asylum. Now contrast that police experience with the boat massacre, where so the boat heading to Relay in international waters, There's a massacre that occurs there. They encounter another boat, they kill everybody, and then go to the island. Everybody perishes except for Johansson. And that police experience, he gets back and says, yeah, there was a couple dozen people, sea monsters and pirates, and they just let him go.
I wonder what the difference was.
What could have been the difference?
Yeah.
The Norwegian versus the...
Yeah.
So, but in that spot, that is international waters. And in 1926, it's practically lawless. It's practically lawless today, a little less so, but anything could have happened. Now today, there is a special territorial protection, which means today that the U.S. claims jurisdiction outside the jurisdiction of any nation. So those international waters with respect to a U.S. national, meaning that today, at least, you cannot just commit eldritch horrors against an American in international waters and escape the long arm of the United States. So Cthulhu is probably wanted for murder.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. One of the things that I discovered when I went down this rabbit hole was the difference between there's international waters, but then there's terra nullius, which is territory that belongs to no state. So we don't have a whole lot of undiscovered land. Well, and I use quotes because if someone's living there, it's already been discussed. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But we don't. There's not a whole lot of places out there. Nobody claims, but apparently they found one.
That's right.
And Cthulhu claims it, I guess, as he showed, but
had a city.
Yes.
So this is another issue, right? For on behalf of Mr. Cthulhu, is Relay a sovereign territory, right? Were in fact these people on the boat who had already engaged in violence? Let us not forget, showed up on his doorstep, well, its doorstep, I guess, right? Entered its home, removed the giant slab, and would you also not protect yourself with your flabby claws if something like that happened? Well, I think the authorities must get to the bottom of that, and so that is why we have
Cthulhu does enjoy like a castle doctrine.
Well, that's the question. Right. That's the issue. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I really thought it was interesting because kind of the way that the world looks at it today is if you have undeclared, land that is owned by nobody, the way to basically become the recognized owner of it is to display a continuous and peaceful display of sovereignty. I feel like
Right.
there's one element of that that's missing in this.
Well, yes and no. It depends. As the lawyer's a full answer. But he was Cthulhu was for eons peaceful, slumbering, right, doing nothing but dreaming and driving people mad through his dreams. But hey, and he had an entire city, right? It's a display of sovereignty. Mm-hmm. I could see it. One other issue that we had spotted was is Cthulhu an animal, and therefore the only one of its kind, and therefore protected under the Endangered Species Act. However, did not exist.
No, would he want to be called an animal?
He doesn't get to choose.
Yeah.
But they do mention that the city is full of great old ones. So I'm not sure if he's even he's the only one seen maybe, but he might not be the only one of the species.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Expert witness over here.
I like it.
So,
wouldn't stand your ground laws also apply? So you could claim that it was in imminent danger from attack.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if it's Florida, Relay.
But that also gets to the question that we were discussing earlier, right? Is this international waters? Is this terra nullius? Is that,
terra nullius.
Terra nullius, or is it in fact a sovereign territory? At any rate, Mr. Cthulhu needs to be in court, which is why we have him being subpoenaed over here, yelled at from a boat by a bunch of...
Those guys going, "You got served!"
You weren't hard to find.
But I would assume that dragging Cthulhu to court, in The Hague or something, would probably end very similarly to
Oh, yeah.
the end of King Kong.
Yeah. Probably not advisable at all.
Make a good story.
All right, I think we're almost at time. We might have time for like a question.
Oh, we have a grab bag.
We do have
Though
a grab
we wanted to
bag.
finish with a bunch of just some
All
quick
right,
hits.
One sentence hits.
All right.
Ready? Go. Pickman's model.
Animal control.
All right.
Right, the house is teeming with these things.
Yeah.
Like we need to get somebody in here.
All right. At the Mountains of Madness. What's the issue?
So in contracts, there's
One sentence, Counselor.
Okay.
No, I'm looking at your notes for this one. This is Harley's slide.
So force majeure contract clauses for acts of elder gods.
All right. Any
That's
issues coming
yours.
up in Dreams in the Witch House? She's a witch.
Yeah.
Ow.
Definitely landlord-tenant. Can you sue your landlord?
For being tormented by a
By
witch.
witch, yeah.
The Thing at the Doorstep.
That's all.
Oh, that's a probate and inheritance law. If you're immortal, what?
What happens to your stuff?
Yeah. What happens to your stuff? You acquire a lot of stuff, probably, over time.
And then finally, the Dunwich Horror.
Child endangerment and juvenile delinquency on the part of Mr. Sawgoth. Just dump. Sorry, say it one more time.
Soft
Soft
off.
off of the record.
Thank you. But just simply dumping his invisible child, into Dunwich to wreak havoc, major
Is
problems.
it Dunwich or Dunwich? Either. I'm here. Okay. This is not a linguistic talk that comes later.
These are all words that I read but don't have the opportunity to hear out loud from fine people like yourselves. So thank you. And thank you for attending the talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been Vanitas Horrendum Lex from Beyond the Bar, a special bonus episode of Pod Sothoth. Thanks for listening, and as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Word of mouth is just about the best way we have to grow our audience. And if you didn't like it, then tell an enemy.